Um, Welcome everyone. Welcome to our talks, GitOpsify, all the things.
Cool.
Right.
So my name's Donal Spring. Sorry, I didn't realize I was going first there. So my name's Donal Spring. I'm an architect working for Red Hat Open Innovation Labs here in EMEA. That's some of the places that you can find me hanging out. Places like Twitter or GitHub, more likely to be seen.
My name is Cansu. I'm a site liability engineer at Open Innovation Labs in EMEA at Red Hat. The same, you can find me in many of the social media probably, so feel free to drop me a message or chat me if you have any questions or anything. But we have lots of talks, so we just wanted to jump into the talk.
Cool.
We're going to talk DevOps, which is like super hype for the last 2 years or so, and I'm pretty sure that you've seen that many people, all of us are doing this, like templating our applications. Let's say that we have this to-do list application and pick one of the greatest DevOps tools in the space and try to deploy our applications through our favorite GitOps tool. So let's say that.
So this is Argo CD, is it?
Yep.
Looks pretty swish.
Yeah, we love Argo CD. So this is what we've been doing for the past 2 years, and this is what many people are doing for the past 2 years. If we wait a little bit, it's going to be deployed on the cluster. And well, this live demo, right? It's half-live. So, yeah.
There we go. Cool. So deployed like a little root, a service, and something else. Easy. So yeah. That's great. So we start off by going to the UI, clicking a few buttons, deploying our Helm charts. And that's super useful, but I might forget which buttons to press, or I might forget which order to do them in. So it'd be probably really important for us to start thinking about, well, how do we start doing this for more important things, for bigger things? So we started to do this.
Hold on, I just realized that I wear the same color with the slides. That's cool.
I'm also wearing green. I don't know if that was subliminal, but anyway.
Sorry, I stole your thunder with the unicorn.
Yeah. It's all right. So then we started to come up with an idea of this thing called the ubiquitous journey. And so the ubiquitous journey is our sort of GitOps Kickstarter that we've been developing over the last number of years in the labs team. We kind of see it as an accelerator. We kind of think of it as like the big bang at the beginning of any project that we start. So what are all the things that often slow us down when we begin any new engagement? It's always like setting up the tooling, configuring Git, and doing all this other nonsense that we have to do again and again and again. So the ubiquitous journey is kind of broken down into a number of different parts. It's got this idea of a bootstrapper or a bootstrap. Bootstrapper sounds weird. I didn't mean to say bootstrapper. It's got this thing called the bootstrap. And the bootstrap is the thing that will spin up our projects that we're going to use in our Kubernetes cluster, spin up things like secret management tools, and our GitOps controller that we just saw there a moment ago, Argo CD. And then the second part of it will spin up all of our tools like Jenkins, Nexus, Selenium, SonarQube, anything that we want to use in order to enable us to do CI/CD. And it kind of...
show that.
Pardon?
You want me to show that? What is it like?
Yeah. Go on then. Flip across and we'll show it. That's probably the easiest way to do it.
Yeah. So this is our ubiquitous journey project. I just cloned it to my local so we can talk about it. It's just another Helm chart, to be honest. There are vital values files that we refer to those applications.
So in here we've got things like, so you see here in our Argo app apps, if you just move up to the values tooling for a second real quick. So inside of here we've got this kind of applications array. And it's really, all this is just like a little bit of fancy glue that we've written that's going to create that Argo CD app of apps that you saw in the UI there a moment ago. Sorry, the form that you edited in the UI in Argo. All this is going to do is generate that for us, because in Kubernetes land, everything is just YAML under the covers. It's all just objects. And so what this does is this provides us a little scaffold. So if you like maybe open up one of those real quick, Cansu. So see like the Nexus one there, this is probably a good example. So all we do with our values for our tooling is we just kind of define the source, whether that's like a Git repository or a Helm chart, or maybe it's even just some customize or some just straight up Kubernetes YAML. It kind of really doesn't really matter what the mechanism is. In this case, it's using Helm, and all we have in here is the where to find it, the name of the chart, and the version. And then if there's any custom values that we want to supply to that chart. So for example, for Nexus, we're going to say use persistence because we want to store our binaries. It's probably important. And make it slightly big. So we're going to give it 16 gigs of storage. Cool. So when you ran that command, what did it spin up?
So while we were talking, I just deployed our ubiquitous journey, and I'm hoping that it is
nice.
somewhere else. So
cool.
This is what it's been look like in in Argo CD UI. We deployed this ubiquitous journey, and there are a couple of applications that ties to that. And this is easily extensible if any of the applications that you need for your development reasons or.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a lightweight approach to the things we might want to use in CI/CD. So imagine, for example, Cansu, we wanted to extend this and like add in another tool. Like imagine I wanted to do like some service virtualization or like to create mock APIs. I wanted to deploy like Castle Mock or like Hoverfly. How would I go about doing that?
I would just need to just extend this list with the whatever the tool you choose. You said Hoverfly, so
okay, cool. You don't want to do the other one I said, no?
Hoverfly, maybe so. We're gonna deploy Hoverfly. So in this example, we are pointing to a Helm chart repository and pointing to the Hoverfly directory and just a couple of override values that we want to make sure that it is running.
Oh, cool. So that's quite interesting. I see in your source there, you've got like, you're pulling it from the upstream Helm chart ecosystem. So it's not even just a chart that we've written custom. So this thing can bring in charts from anywhere, really.
Exactly. So if I push this and Hoverfly is added to this journey.
Cool.
Push it repo. I am hoping that
Cool. I can see the previous commit there says Hoverfly removed from ubiquitous journey. I guess you were practicing this like maybe a few minutes before the demo.
Exactly. Good. And now you will see that Hoverfly is added to ubiquitous journey because it just popped up here. So it was yeah. Hoverfly is added to ubiquitous journey. So as you see that this is super easy to extend.
That's cool. So if I wanted to extend this, I've got like a really easy mechanism to do it. That's pretty cool. So this kind of reminds me of when we were working with a customer and they said, that's pretty cool, but like that works probably pretty well for like a small number of teams or maybe one team with like a small, maybe two teams with like some shared tooling. So when we were working for this airline, they turned around and asked us, well, that's cool, but we've got N release trains with Y teams. So how is this going to work in that environment?
So our response to that was, why not GitOpsify everything?
I mean,
like in the title. So we
cool.
decided to take the same approach that we took with the ubiquitous journey because we saw that in ubiquitous journey we can easily extend it with a number of applications, with a number of environments. So we decided to go with the same way. For example, this is an example approach to that, but if you look at this, there are in here you can see that there are multiple teams like pirates, Vikings, cowboys, and because why not? Because
ERP. What's ERP?
I don't even remember. But in each team, think about this like a release trains values file. This is just another Helm chart with definitions of this release train, which is like a multiple application and multiple team, and each team has the multiple application in it. So you'll see that there is the service tool application, there is this flight search or station applications for Vikings. So if you would like to add another team, all I need to do is just to extend this list, and in each team has their own values files for their applications, which is related to what those which is related to what the application needs for that environment, for this specific deployment. Because ideally, this company wants to go with Kubernetes and want to go with the cloud native. So ideally, they use Helm charts or another template method that their GitOps engine supports. So it's just a matter of referring those Helm charts that these application team writes, and then override whatever they need for each environment. So, for example, if they need for a test environment, if they need a specific values like database connection string or some other environment variables, all just need to do that extend this list, extend this values file with that information. And it's also easy to create another environment because you already have the application definition and you know what values you would like. All you need to do is just to extend the all you need to do is just to either add an if you have a new team, you just need to add a new team and new folder structure, or you can just add another folder, a new folder under the existing team, and just saying that this is my performance testing environment, and this could be like a temporary environment. Just create those folder structure and values files, and it's just Argo CD will pick this up as another application definition, Argo CD application definition, and deploy them to the cluster. And when you are done with it, all you need to just remove that definition from here.
That sounds pretty cool and sounds like a pretty extensible way of like onboarding new groups and new services in a really fast, really repeatable way. And I think what I really like about that is the fact that as a developer, I probably don't need to think about the underlying host, the underlying infrastructure or anything like that. I know I just need to commit my changes to Git, the single source of truth, almost bow down to Git. We are not worthy, etc., etc. And then this change is automatically picked up. That's pretty cool. But
exactly, look at these information that you need to know, like which repositories you use, which branch you would like to target, which environment you want to target, and what is your override values, what is your default values, and which is already in your repositories, and what are the things that you just want to override. And it's just a click of button away to recreate all this stuff.
That's cool.
In a new environment.
Yeah, so when I look at this, I kind of think of this as like the deployment aspect. Like in order for me to be able to do something like continuous deployment, all I have to do is like change a value. But how did I get to the point where I knew I was ready to deploy? So like, what about my apps? I see your bee. It looks like the bee is kind of farting light, by the way, doesn't it? Looks like it's
sort of lightening the way.
Okay, right. Okay.
So the next slide.
Okay, yeah, cool. Yeah. Let's not talk about the farting bee. So CI, CD, CI/CD, CI/CD squared. I mean, there's just so many words and acronyms. We have, I guess, it's probably fair to say we have quite an opinionated view on the way we should structure pipelines in order to kind of get the most out of them, get the most repeatability. So if I think about the bits you've just shown there, they're all about the deployment, but how do I know my deployment is actually worth its salt? Like, how do I know it's got any good quality to it? We kind of adopt what I would call a GitHub approach to a GitHub flow to managing Git. So we like to do like short-term feature branches, maybe for like an hour or maybe a day and a half at max. And then we kind of push towards people moving towards a trunk sort of model. But in that ecosystem, when we do like that fast feedback, I'm a developer, I'm just doing something in my own little workspace. Anytime I commit, we have Jenkins, which we've spun up using our ubiquitous journey. It will go and run a little mini pipeline for me, right? So on our kind of on our simple path for that, we always have like a sandbox build. We have a build, which just basically sets some variables for that build. We then do a build. We kind of subscribe to this notion, sort of like an abstract pipeline view, where every microservice or everything we do will always go through a build, a bake, and a deploy. So for a build, if I'm building a Node.js app or doing some Java app, I might just like run some unit testing. It might link my code, do some static code analysis. It'll compile it, and it'll take the binary and it'll pop it in Nexus or something like that. The bake is always the act of taking that binary out and putting it into a box. So it's packaged up, ready for like a Kubernetes distribution, such as OpenShift. And then the deploy will kind of take the container image that's just been produced and update our Helm chart to a reference to that newly created image. So none of this latest in our version. We're using proper good old versioning, semantic versioning at this point. And then in my sort of sandbox, like doing my feature branch development, this will run a deploy, which is just do a Helm install inside of a cluster. And that's kind of like the end of my pipeline. That's like a really fast feedback for my pipeline. So if I wanted to do like a release candidate, what would I do? Oh, okay, so it looks pretty much the same. So I would follow the exact same steps, but the only slight caveat here is instead of doing a Helm install to my dev environment or my test environment, I've kind of left shifted this kind of operations control for how my applications look in like production or in performance or in staging. And I've left shifted them all the way to the dev and test environment. so that when I produce the new image, instead of having Jenkins or my tool of choice just go helm install this guy over there, I check that value into Git, because if it's not in Git, it's not real. Yeah, it didn't happen. So it has to be in Git in order for it to take effect. So at that point, then we would maybe imagine I was building a simple application that had like 2 or 3 microservices, a front end, and maybe a database. I kind of see all of that working together as my system, or in Argo land, that's kind of seen as like the app of apps. So you've got one app, which would be, let's say, imagine I've got my Pepaddle app, which we've used before. It's made up of a front end, like a cats microservice, like a tournament microservice, an advertisement microservice. Imagine all of this working together is my system. When I make a change to any component in that system, I want to make sure that it's behaving as I expect it to do. So as a result, at the end of any microservice following this exact same pipeline, we then trigger the system tests, which would then go and run this extra step to maybe run my UI tests against the front end, run my Cucumber, my integration tests against the services layer, and just check that each bit is working as the user would actually interact with the app. And if that's the case, then we would automatically promote our application up to staging or on production, which of course in our world is very simple to do, because as Cansu you just showed a minute ago, all I have to do is just update that value in my YAML file and it automatically deploys for me.
That's exactly why we connected the dots between CI and CD. And I think I have somewhere around in here the one that you mentioned. Oh, here. So this is the service that you imagine.
Can you zoom in on that, Cansu?
I think I might need to reload it again.
Maybe you can pinch and zoom.
Yeah, sorry.
All right. Don't worry about it. I shouldn't have even said anything.
I knew it timed out, so oh, it didn't. Ah, sorry.
Let's log into the other one.
So you want me to zoom in?
Yeah. Cool. So you've got like a test app of apps. So this is the test system, and it's made of your Pepaddle API, and in this case, you've got a key clock, which is like
and
a piece of like infrastructure kind of thing.
And these are all defined in the Git repository in the screenshots that I showed, just like the team responsible with this application, and this team is responsible with the Helm charts and how to deploy these applications and all the values that they needed to run these applications, and they just point to their repositories in the Git repo so that they can deploy these and whatever.
So when I think about like historically when we look at things like a performance test environment, people often like try to scaffold one of those out, and it's usually this long-lived snowflake thing. So for me to create like a performance test environment, all I have to do is just copy the deployment structure and then just spin that thing up, and I could have it shut down at the end of the night, or I could kill it. Because if we're actually thinking about like cloud native development here, we should really start thinking about like treating these environments as sort of ephemeral. And in fact, actually, we probably by giving them a name like dev, test, and staging, we're probably hanging on to a little bit of our old world development a little bit. We should be just calling these like a random number, like Cansu123, or, I don't know, application details 495. It doesn't really matter what we call them, because if we start to name them, we start to think of them as pets, when really, if we just give them a random ID, they're cattle.
Exactly.
Cool.
So why we did all these?
So thinking more about like the idea of like cloud native development, I think the tracks were all kind of divided up into like people, process, and technology, but we're kind of firm believers that actually you sort of can't do that in the real world. The people, process, technology thing is a bit of a triangle, and you need like all sides of it in order for it to work. We've seen so many examples of our customers where they try to just embrace the technology and they forget about bringing their developers with them, or they just like roll out a new platform which they think is going to be really, really great and enable fast flow and all these other things, but they don't restructure themselves in a way that actually is supported by it. So a little bit of a shout out, I guess. Cansu, you said that one of these, Manuel is...
Yeah, Manuel is going to also have a session in the conference, so make sure that you catch that also.
Unless it's on at the same time as ours.
No, it's not. I checked.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so total shout out to these guys. yeah, the team topology stuff is a short book. I don't do a lot of reading, so short book is good for me. You're gonna get the book out now and plug it, aren't you?
Yeah, I was looking for. I
I
don't
think mine's on
remember
the
where to
shelf
put
over
it.
here.
Sorry.
But it's worth checking these guys out. They talk a lot about like how do you structure teams and the kind of reducing cognitive load and enabling fast flow of information across your team structure.
So if you specifically think what we showed you, like we expect, so developers are already using some templating methods because they can't just keep repeating all these deployment configs or all the other YAML files. So they are naturally go with the templating method or simply the Kubernetes YAML files. But infrastructure as code is one of the best practices in this cloud native environment. So what we bring to the table with this GitOpsify approach is no different than what they already use. Like it's just another Helm chart with another, it's just different values file structure, which we build together with them. This work we show you is just not like a two platform engineers sat down and they did, oh yeah, that's
Just
easy
invented
to do.
it with a magic wand.
We did it incrementally, work together with devs to see what is easy for them to, just onboard that, and it's easy for them to use and change the structure based on their feedback. So the goal is to fasten the flow, as it says, and reducing the cognitive flow, which also brings me to another topic that, because we evolved the platform while we're working them, so this brings us to another topic called platform as a product, which is also in the book. I think you can see that there is a notion for platform team and treating the platform as a product. Because why it is important? Because if you think about the product characteristics that we just listed here, all of them applies to the platform, because a platform shouldn't be it should be optional, as it says, because otherwise it would become a hard bottleneck quickly, because the platform can't really cover all the edge cases. You should really work towards what is needed.
And this ties pretty neatly into that idea of like creating an awesome developer experience. Yeah. So thinking about like a product as an optional thing to use. If a development team feels like they've got all the skills and they're really comfortable using Amazon's, I don't know, their EC2 and a bunch of other services, and they've got some automation around that, that's cool, that's perfect. The idea with turning things into using a platform as a product approach to things is taking all of the kind of things we do when designing and building products and applying them to the kind of the layer that makes it easier for developers to go quicker to do their job right. How can we reduce the cognitive load for our engineers so that they can focus on the hard stuff, which is, building those microservices, doing that complicated integration. So it should be designed and curated for the user needs, which in our case is our engineers. So this is a thing called the big picture, which is like a little artifact that we created for an FSI company we worked with recently. And so initially the Red Hat team, we, myself, Cansu, and some others, we acted as the sort of enabling team for this organization, right? We kind of like almost symbiotically latched onto the side of this group to help them to solve some of their problems, scaffold out some new microservices. They were a very traditional banking customer who was onboarding into Kubernetes for the first time. So they needed to think about their application design and how it would work in a container native, sort of cloud native ecosystem. And from this, we had a couple of teams. From this, we started to notice that actually there was a lot of shared things that the teams were doing, and both teams were trying to do at the same time. So from this, we started to realize that actually this sort of layer of supporting services and other helpful things that we were building up on top of the Kubernetes layer, which would support the application tier, this in itself was starting to become another product. So not only were the microservices they were building their product, but also the things that they sit on. And so we built our platform on top of OpenShift. And as we said a moment ago, we really, really wanted to focus on the developer experience. So one of the things we had in here was this IDE thing on the left-hand side. So the banking customer had a pretty restrictive setup with their laptops. They weren't able to access binaries. They weren't able to install things. So when we came along with this new suite of tooling, talking about Helm and Argo and Kube CLI, it took us like 3 or 4 days to get them just be able to install the things on their computers. So we proposed this idea of having like the IDE in the cloud, right? Let's put it into the cluster as well and make it another thing that an engineer could self-service. And if there was something missing in it, it's really easy for them to update that. So, for example, when the new version of Helm came out, one of the engineers just pull requests the infrastructure as code, it gets approved, and it automatically gets produced and rolled out to all the engineers.
That's the most important bit to me in the whole this product as a platform. Everything is, again, GitOpsify, everything is stored in Git that you see in here. So it is not closed down somewhere in knowledge of some single team. It's open to everyone. Everyone is welcome to evolve this, welcome to develop this, welcome to contribute it. It's not just this platform team or what operation team, whatever we call it. Is open to everyone, and developers are definitely welcome to raise their PR and help to improve the platform, because it's the product that needs feedback from the user, needs the guidance from the user. So
that's cool. So the other things I guess we had in our platform as a product was the idea of self-service pipelines. So the pipelines we just showed previously, these were consumable in 2 flavors. We created them in Tekton for people doing pure cloud native development in Kubernetes, and for people doing Jenkins who are a bit more, wanted to kind of stick with a bit more of a kind of familiar piece of the tool chain for themselves. We had the option of doing either. So you could do your build, bake, deploy, and pick the method or pick the tool you wanted to use. And obviously, because this is, we weren't trying to impose that this is how you should do it, right? That's not the objective here. The objective was, here are some things that can help you go faster. And we tried to build a community and an ecosystem around them through this pull request method, and creating this idea of having brown bag sessions when a new thing was onboarded to the platform and there's a new tool available. And likewise, we also introduced this idea of a self-service approach to things like monitoring and logging and the observability stack. We had one little YAML file that the engineers needed to just drop into their charts in order to be able to have metrics and the service monitor of their applications pick up whether or not there was a spike in usage or the memory usage. So we're just trying to make it really, really easy for the engineers to do things that are kind of traditionally hard to do. And it's not about taking responsibility away from people. What we're really trying to do here is actually just take the hard, repeatable stuff and push that to the side, because we can solve that as a problem, and you can either choose to use it or not choose to use it. We're not saying you have to use it. We're just saying that it's here as an off-the-shelf solution. And it's not just a one-time operation of you taking that, but it's more of if you take it and you find there's something wrong with it, then we're open. We kind of created this inner sourcing model around these things, whereby if there's something that doesn't work for you, then you're kind of at liberty to either add it to our backlog as the platform team, or to just go and pull request it yourself and go and change it and update it.
Exactly. Inner sourcing is another keyword in here. And the journey starts how to GitOpsify these deployments, but it takes us to all this. Takes us to here where we can build the community around these tools, community around this approach. And I think that's a neat spot to tie things, because we don't have time.
Sorry, I can't.
So what we can say that if you want to know more, reach out to us through Twitter, GitHub, or our websites. Just we are happy to. Yes, from Slack. We are happy to talk with you. So thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.